I'm getting in trouble.
This is where you get started a podcast.
Yeah, come on, start a podcast, please.
Yeah, we'd be able to teach.
Just do it while you drive. While you're driving to school, just hook up a microphone, start record the podcast. I will listen to that every day.
That anger out, you know.
Please. I'm serious. I will listen to that every day.
Okay, so Roosevelt, a couple previous slides, it said we're going to soak the rich with taxes. Okay, this is part of that. This is like breaking up big businesses. I wouldn't necessarily call these like monopolies, but conglomerates. And then they're going to do something that we've never really done before. And that is use the Interstate Commerce Clause. There, I have 5 people out of 55 that have turned in the optional assignment, okay, to this point. It's due tomorrow night, okay. This is one of the questions on the assignment, is about the Interstate Commerce Clause, okay. So let me explain that to you now. Guys, the Interstate Commerce Clause has always been in the Constitution. It's in Article 4, okay, in interstate and federal relations, that the federal government is given the power to regulate interstate trade that takes place between states and international trade. It's just they've never really used this power until the New Deal. Okay? So let me give you some examples here. Let's say you build houses for a living. Okay? That you're a home builder. The wood to frame the house up. Do we get that wood in Kansas? No, we don't have any trees. Okay? And the ones that we do have, we don't want to cut down and use for lumber because they're, precious. Where do we get the lumber to frame up houses in Wichita? Any guys have any idea where that lumber comes from? It could come from Oregon. Most of our lumber actually is imported from Canada. When we had the lockdown, not only did we have a lockdown, Canada had a lockdown, and they have that little, Trudeau guy up there, and they went hardcore. And so, guys, lumber prices in this country more than doubled. So, a 2x4 doubled in price or more. Finally, those lumber costs are starting to come down. But though that lumber crosses state lines, crosses an international border. So if you're a home builder, because you're using lumber that comes across state lines, under the Interstate Commerce Clause, the federal government can regulate the home building industry. So the nails that you use to build the house, the nuts, the bolts, the screws, the roofing shingles, none of that stuff is made in Kansas. It's all imported across state lines. So that means the roofing industry, the housing industry, all regulated by the federal government. You guys have heard of OSHA? It's like the workplace hazard. I forget the exact name of does anybody know what OSHA stands for? Occupational, is it occupational? Yeah, something like that, yeah. Guys, they have all kinds of regulations. This is how they do it. It's through this, okay? I don't know if we've talked about this in here, the Americans with Disability Act. So the stadium out back here, is there a ramp for wheelchairs in the stands there? No, there's not, okay? If we make some type of improvement to the stands, like build more or replace the planks or whatever, you have to make it ADA accessible, Americans with Disabilities Act accessible. Okay, so I don't know how we got away with this, but the press boxes up at the stadium, guys, those are new, relatively new. The old ones, they were terrible. I mean, like, you felt like you were gonna fall through the floor. They were awful, okay? They put new ones in there, and I'm really surprised we didn't have to put an elevator there on both sides. When we built this addition to the school, okay, and the AC, we had to put in elevators, okay? So out of the baseball field, we have that little deck behind the backstop. There's a ramp on that one side, because we built that, a few years ago. So those are regulations, okay? This allows the government to regulate pretty much everything. Now, they never really used it before this, but it's always been there. And now we have tens and tens of thousands of regulations that come down from the federal government, okay? So like this whole thing with oil, right? Why can't we produce more oil at home? Okay, well, the Biden administration, here I go. The Biden administration, when he was running for president, he was very adamant, Biden was, about no new fracking on federal lands, and we're going to phase out oil. We're going to green energy. In California, they're going to ban combustion engine cars in 2035. That's 13 years from now. Mayor Pete, the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, okay, has said, of course we can transition to all electric cars by 2035. What? Are you kidding? Yeah.
What about like the classic cars?
Yeah, what about them? Are they going to make that illegal? I don't know. Hey, all we need is a big hurricane. Oh, that was caused by climate change. Oh, this is a crisis. Oh, what happens now? We've got a climate crisis. Climate crisis. Climate crisis. Ever hear any politicians say that? You ever hear them say it over and over again? Okay. Joe Biden was in Florida yesterday, and he brought it up. Hurricane Ian happened because of climate crisis. Dude, we've had hurricanes forever. I know this was a big one, but we've had big ones before. And if you look at the number of hurricanes over the last couple of decades, the number of hurricanes are way down. Have we had some super big ones? A couple. It's man-made. Climate change is causing those. You know that, right? For a fact. Like, okay, this bill that we passed through Congress is going to stop these hurricanes from happening ever again. It's going to be wonderful. A bunch of politicians in Washington, D.C. are going to change the climate. Seriously? Okay, I'm sorry.
This is why you need a
Start the podcast, please. Please start a podcast.
Do you really think, like,
I will listen to your podcast. I guarantee you're gonna be like the next, like
Joe Rogan.
like Joe Rogan or
okay,
Ben Shapiro.
I gotta get off this, okay?
Come on.
But guys, listen, we need regulations, okay? And guys, we all want to breathe clean air, right? You go back to the 1970s, and you go to cities like Los Angeles, Denver, smog, man. The air quality was horrible. So, hey, some praise to the tree hugging folks. You know what I mean? We have cleaner air. We have less carbon in the air than any other major industrial country per capita. We have lowered our carbon emissions in this country a lot over the last 25, 30 years. We've done a pretty good job with this. Now, China doesn't really pay attention to this. So they're still building new coal-fired plants while we're destroying ours. And destroying, states like West Virginia and Eastern Ohio, which survive, these communities survive off of coal. And they're drying up, okay? But, coal is it burns dirty. Do we have some new technology that's cleaner burning coal places? Yeah, we do. And why in the hell aren't we building more nuclear power plants? What is going on here? You want clean energy? There it is. And that's the crazy thing, you know? I don't know. Put me in charge. All right, you guys, we're going to put me behind. Okay? All right, let's talk about labor unions. Now, labor unions didn't feel like the National Recovery Administration went far enough in helping them. So Roosevelt and Congress will oversee the passage of the National Labor Relations Act, which will create the National Labor Relations Board. Okay? It's better than the first hour. This National Labor Relations Board is still around today. Okay? And it's important. Have you heard any stories about like Amazon or Starbucks, like their workforce unionizing? You heard some stuff about this? Okay. Like Amazon warehouses. Have you heard anything about how they treat the employees in these warehouses? Yeah. You've got like these quotas and a certain amount of time. You got to do it, to fill an order. It's hardcore, right? So these employees have talked about unionizing. Now, do you think Jeff Bezos wants the Amazon warehouse employees to unionize? No, because then they can bargain with him and say, look, we're going to go on strike if you don't ease off these employees a little bit, pay them a little bit more, give them better working conditions. Can Jeff Bezos threaten those individuals that are trying to unionize with their jobs? No, that's against the law. Okay? This guarantees the right, okay, without facing repercussions from your employer. You remember when I was talking about, starting a Bishop Carroll Catholic Teachers Union, right? They can't fire me for trying to do that. Okay, now they might find another reason to fire me. You know what I mean? And there's plenty. There's plenty. Like, watch my videos. They're like, Ebra, you can't do that in class. Okay, you're done. Okay. All right. Now, so this will try and attempt to stop unfair practices against unions. Now, does any of you, I'm going to give you an example where this took place in recent years, okay? Any of you guys familiar with where Boeing's national headquarters are? It's on this map. Seattle. Okay, that's where Boeing's headquarters are. Okay, now Washington State is a what's called a union shop. Okay, if there's a sheet metal workers union at the Boeing plant in Seattle, and you're a sheet metal worker, you have to join the union. You do not have a choice. That is a union shop. Now, Kansas, okay, is what's called a right to work state. So, if there's a sheet metals union at Spirit, sheet metal workers union at Spirit, do you have to join? No. Because you have a right to work in the state of Kansas and not join a union. You with me? So about 23 states of the 50 are union shops. 27 of the states are right to work states. Now Boeing wanted to build a new manufacturing facility here. What state is that? That's South Carolina. All right. Maybe that's pretty good. That's the right spot. All right. South Carolina. Now, South Carolina, like Kansas, is a right to work state. So they would be able to pay these new sheet metal workers less money because there's no union. Or maybe there is a union, but it doesn't have as much power because not everybody's forced to join it. Okay? Well, the union here in Seattle complained, saying to the NLRB, they said this is an attack against the union in Seattle by building this plant in a right to work state in South Carolina. Now, the NLRB has 3 people on it. It's a 3-person board. And they voted 2-1 in agreement with the union in Seattle, saying this was an action by Boeing to hurt the union in Seattle. And you can't do that. What do you mean? Boeing can't build a plant in any state it wants to? Is this not a free country? What's going on here? So this one resigned in protest. In about 3 years, it took about 3 years, they finally relented and let Boeing build that plant in South Carolina, creating thousands of jobs. Okay. Where's the cost of living higher? In Seattle or Greenville, South Carolina?
Seattle.
Guys, it's crazy expensive out there, man. I was out there 2 summers ago against my will. Okay. I mean, Seattle's beautiful, but the people are crazy, man. They're nuts. All right. Anyhow, guys, these are appointed by presidents. So a president only gets to appoint when one of them quits or retires. Okay. So there's 3 people still around, still has an impact. Okay. I'll talk more about these union shops and right to work states after World War II. We'll get into some more of that. Okay. Or if I have a few minutes tomorrow at the end of my lecture, I'll come back to the unions. It's kind of important to know. All right. So labor unions really like this. They thought this was a good thing for them. Okay. This is another little political, this is humorous political cartoon. So what do unions do? They help you make more money, right? They work, okay. Better working conditions, all that, yeah? So this guy says, hey, if you want more money, upgrade your skills. He said, well, I'm already taking a computer class. He said, but I could add another course. And he said, well, here's one that should help. Introduction to Union Organizing. You want to make more money. Okay. Now, if you didn't find that humorous, maybe you'll find this humorous. I don't know. Sometimes this stuff is really dry, you know? So you got to lighten it up. Okay. Now, some of this, guys, I've already talked about. This is where we get into the fight between Roosevelt and the Supreme Court, okay? Now I'm going to mess with you. Sorry. This way you'll listen to me. Okay. The manufacturing process, this first line up here, manufacturing processing tax found unconstitutional, okay? 1936. Well, that tax was put in place in 1933. If it was unconstitutional in 1933, why did it take 3 years for the Supreme Court to declare it unconstitutional? Okay? What you need to understand is how our system works, okay? If Congress passes a law that's unconstitutional, the Supreme Court can't read that law and say, sorry, you can't, no, that's unconstitutional. No, there's got to be a victim. So the law is passed, the law is enforced by the executive branch, somebody is impacted by that law that is unconstitutional, they sue, usually starting in a federal district court, okay, then moving up to a federal appeals court. Then, and only then, if 4 of the 9 Supreme Court justices want to hear the case, they will ask for the case to be sent to them, and only then will they decide whether that law is constitutional or unconstitutional. In this case, it took 3 years. So this is one of our most famous cases in American history, okay? Brown versus Board of Education. Which Board of Education? Huh? No? Which one in Kansas? Topeka, Kansas. You guys have heard of Brown versus Board of Education? Yeah, that was in Topeka. Okay, who was Brown? Brown is the father of 3 young black girls that go to school in Topeka on the wrong side of the railroad tracks, where they don't have the same schools, the same funding as the people on the other side of the railroad tracks, you know, with the white and wealthy people. And so Brown stood up for his daughter, saying that segregation of schools was unconstitutional. It violated the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause, where all citizens have equal protection under the law. He won. Okay? It took a long time. That case was decided in 1954. Segregation had been around since 1865. 1866, when the 14th Amendment was passed. It took the Supreme Court 90 years to say, oh yeah, that's wrong. You can't segregate the races like that. It's unconstitutional. Okay. So abortion, right? 72 took till 2022 to overturn that. Okay. The Supreme Court got it wrong the first time around. Okay. Somebody had to sue. Okay. And it works its way up. So who sued? Like Mississippi, Texas put some really stringent laws on abortion. Okay. And then people sued saying those violate Roe v. Wade. That case makes it up there. The court looks over that Roe v. Wade decision again, and they say, these justices were wrong. There is no right to an abortion in the Constitution. Where did they come up with that? Okay. And so they said they were wrong, and they overturned that decision. There's got to be a victim. You with me on that? Okay. All right. Now you can write down the number. So the processing tax, that's where we taxed Henry Ford to pay farmers not to plant crops. Yeah, you can't do that. Now, the government still wanted to reduce surpluses of food, right? This is how we got crop prices up and farm income up. So they come up with this to get around some of these, the Supreme Court. And so they say, okay, we're going to restrict production based on the idea that we're conserving the soil. So don't grow your crops, this will conserve the soil, which sure does, right? Or they will encourage farmers and pay farmers to plant soil conserving crops. Guys, some crops are harder on the soil than others, like wheat. It's hard on the soil, okay? But what can you grow that helps replenish the nutrients, the minerals in the soil that will help it to continue to be good soil? What kind of, you guys know of any soil conserving crops? They grow in the ground. Anything that grows in the ground, potatoes, peanuts, okay? But also soybeans. Soybeans are good for the soil, okay? So we grow a lot of soybeans in Kansas. And so you see them come in right after the wheat crop, right, or the corn crop, and it helps replenish the soil. And so we find new uses for soybeans. You know what I mean? Like, what can we do with all these beans? Have any of you guys had one of these hamburgers or cheeseburgers in the lunchroom down here? I asked Ely once. I said, Ely, what percentage of this burger I'm about to eat, hamburger I'm about to eat, is actually beef? He said, oh, it's 100% beef. No way, dude. I cooked burgers last night. They don't look anything like that. You know they gotta have some soybeans mixed in there, right? Which is, it's not bad for you. It's probably more healthy than the beef, but. Soybean burgers. Okay, they're also going to limit the powers of the SEC. We know about the minimum wage thing, right? So are you guys gonna be able to write about that on the test, the minimum wage thing, the switching time saves 9? You need me to talk about that again real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. How many Supreme Court justices are there? 9. Roosevelt was upset with the court, yes? So he wanted to add how many? 6. Okay, well, that wouldn't do it, okay, but that would create 15. But he also wanted a retirement age, right, of 70, which means 2 of these 9 would lose their jobs. Meaning Roosevelt could pick 8 new justices. These 2 old guys switched their vote in time saving 9, which is a newspaper headline. And if you are planning on doing the homework, this is one of the questions. So I covered 2 of the questions today on the homework, okay? Now, one way to get around the minimum wage thing, guys, was the Government Contracts Act. And this is smart, okay? Who builds Air Force One for the president? What company? Boeing. Okay, that's a big contract. You guys know what company makes the F-22 Joint Strike Fighter? Lockheed Martin. That's a huge government contract. Do you know who helps build like the missiles and stuff like that locally here in Wichita for the U.S. Army? It's a company called Raytheon. You heard of Raytheon? Yeah, they're in East Wichita, okay, and they're like a defense contractor. Now they're global, but their weapons system stuff is here in Wichita. Okay. I told Lily she had career fair at her college, right? And I'm like, Raytheon, get in on that. Okay. My wife went to college at Virginia Tech, and so her 3 roommates were all valedictorians of their high schools. My wife was not the valedictorian of her high school, but her roommates all married engineers. And like 2 of these guys, they work in the defense industry as contractors. And one of them, George, helps build missiles that can go into concrete, like through a concrete bunker, and then explode. And the other guy's working on the rail gun. You guys know the rail gun? Yeah, he's working on that project. So, yeah, I told Lily, I said, hey, check out Raytheon. See, get an internship there. Tell me some secrets. Yeah. But what's going on next? What's the next level of technology?
Like, what's a railgun?
A railgun? Every bullet that you fire has gunpowder in it. These are bullets that are fired with electricity, not gunpowder. Electromagnetism.
Take 2 rails and they essentially put coils on them and magnetize them to where the magnetism is directed forward. So you take a steel bolt, you have these rails, pump them with electricity, bolt is sent out at around Mach 7.
Yeah.
7 times faster than the speed of sound, yeah.
Is that faster than a normal bullet?
Yeah.
It is?
By a lot.
Okay. So you don't have to worry about gravity as much.
No. Did you hear ever what they, I heard somewhere that they theorized that they're trying to use the railgun to shoot down missiles.
Okay.
So they just put it on the back of a truck, missile comes in, turn on the railgun and automatically shoots it down.
Well, I mean, I know we're trying a lot of different things to be able to shoot down missiles. We're having some success with that. I haven't heard like lasers, they've talked, laser technology. Boeing's working on that where you can like put a laser on the front of like a 747 and patrol the skies. And then if there's incoming missiles, we can use missiles or lasers now. So right now the Navy has these mounted on their ships where they can point a laser at another ship's engine room and overheat their engine. So it's basically dismantling their ability to move.
That's very simple.
Yeah. That's employed right now with our Navy. Now, if you can do that with a missile, okay, we're trying to get like this idea of Star Wars, like bing, bing, pew, pew, right? Right? Where you can use lasers. We'll get there. This is why smart people are important. Okay. Yeah. So listen, if you have a government contract to build aircraft for the military, the government says, hey, look, if you want that contract, you will pay your employees this much money. Okay. So that is one way to get around, say, federal minimum wage laws to increase wages for people is using this. Okay. And then this is a graphic here, 1938, when they started with the minimum wage, it was 25 cents. Okay. Now, obviously, at $7.35, right? $7.25. 20. Are any of you guys working for minimum wage? Yeah, most people don't. Okay. Now, have we talked about this? Did I get off topic on this before with you guys? This is a tough sell to high school students, but I feel like there should not be a minimum wage. Period. Let me tell you why. When you go to apply for a job, what are they going to ask you? What kind of experience do you have? Okay. Well, if you can't get a job in the first place, it's hard to get any experience. So young people, teenagers, especially our inner city youth, unemployment rate's really high. And if you go to a place like Seattle, and they went to $15 an hour in Seattle, okay, McDonald's is not going to do that. They're going to find a way to cut the number of employees they have by using innovation. So like, I don't know if you've been in a McDonald's lately, but you can order at a kiosk and then go pick up your food. Look at Walmart. They don't have checkout people in a lot of their stores anymore. Dillon's, just this week, they've always had the little self-checkout things, but now this week it appeared like, and I thought it was pretty cool. Like I can do this, and then there's the belt, the belt that, so you do your self-checkout, boom, put it on the belt, and it goes to the end. I'm like, dude, I feel like a checker. This is kind of fun. It was last night I was doing that. I'm like, this is fun. But there's, they got the one guy that stands there to make sure you're not stealing anything. You know what I mean? That you keep raising these, this hurts people. You have to allow for young people with no skills, no talent, not much education, and teach them how to work. And if you raise minimum wage too high, you're going to create a situation where people can't get any experience. Or those opportunities are going to be really reduced. So I don't think we should have one, period. Now, listen. It's hard they'll abuse people, right? They'll abuse people. Okay, well, this is what you should be paid for. You should be paid for the value that you provide. Okay, now, I'm a teacher. How do we value teachers in the United States? Right? It's like, oh, you're a teacher? Oh, okay. That's cool. I live in my own little, I'm still in high school. Okay. But yeah, like my wife, she's super smart. She has multiple degrees. She's an engineer with an MBA. She's got a ton of experience. She can problem solve. if you run any kind of plant, any type of plant, she can fix it for you. Tell you how to fix it. You want to reconfigure it, she can tell you how to do that. Okay? Yeah, I can't do that. I don't have that value. Okay? So I don't make as much money. And I knew that going in, right? I didn't go into education to get rich. People that do are stupid because you're not going to get rich. Okay? You want to make money, get into the private sector. You want to make a lot of money, start your own business.
Start a podcast.
Yes, please.
Somebody's listening to me rant. Okay.
That would be my source of information.
This is kind of a cool thing. We're talking about unconstitutional laws, okay? Starting in the first year, right? Going all the way to about 2000. The dark blue up here are state and local laws that have been declared unconstitutional. So this period right here is in the 20s. This dealt with some immigration laws, things, we got pretty hardcore, like what's his name, Mitchell Palmer and the Red Scare. And then this is Jim Crow. Okay, so Brown versus Board Hatch is 1954, segregation of schools, that's here, okay, and then it's on, okay. All these local laws that segregate people and that sort of thing, they're all going to be like shot down, okay. This is the time period we're talking about here with Roosevelt, right in here, okay. So yeah, it's a little bit higher than normal. Somebody asked me, well, what happened in the 90s? I mean, off the top of my head, I didn't have a chance to really look this up this morning, but I know one of the things Congress passed that was unconstitutional was called the line item veto. This is pretty interesting because this was a Republican Congress trying to give this to a Democratic president, Bill Clinton. Okay, and they said basically Republicans wanted to cut spending. And so when they sent the president bill to sign, they said you can take a pen and cross out some of the spending that you think is wasteful and then sign it. Okay? Well, the first time Bill Clinton did that, he cut some funding that was supposed to go to New York City. And the Attorney General of New York City at the time was a guy named Rudy Giuliani. And Giuliani sued and saying, you can't do that. The president doesn't make the laws. Only Congress makes the laws. And so the line item veto went away. They were trying to make it easier to cut spending, but you can't, even though the Congress was trying to give the president that power, you can't give the president that power. Congress is going to have to make those tough decisions on their own. Okay. So, yeah, that's one thing I just knew about. Okay, how much time we got? 2 minutes? Yeah. You guys can write this down if you want. Let's get started on it. We'll be a little bit behind, but we'll be able to finish tomorrow. Pretty much from here on out, we're going to be talking a lot politics tomorrow. Okay, political shifts and that sort of thing. Okay, listen, we are not out of the depression, but we're going into the 1936 election. Okay, are things better than they were when Roosevelt took office? And the answer is yes. Okay. The FDR and others felt the New Deal had been a success. By June, industrial production was up to 23, 25 levels. We know farm income is up. We know weekly wages are up. Okay. And guys, unemployment drops by 5 million. Remember all these programs, the TVA, all those people building dams, the WPA, the PWA, Public Works and Works Progress. Works Progress hired 8.5 million people over 8 years. Okay, so you can see a lot of this. Now we're not out of the Depression, but Roosevelt is very popular. Okay, and real quick before you leave, in this 36 election, the Republicans have no chance. There's no way they're beating Roosevelt, okay? So I'll get into that tomorrow with you. Have a good